Hello, hello, possumlets. Yes, yes it is I, once again the conspicuous Moo. And this time we are going to revisit the monk class in World of Warcraft because 9.1 has now been officially announced. So while we all get excited about that, let's have a look at the best class and the least represented class in World of Warcraft and see if there are any major changes around the corner, so let us get cracking. First of all, let's get the most important thing out of the way. The good news is that there haven't been that many major changes to monks. The bad news is that there haven't been that many major changes to monks. But let's go into a little more detail about it, and we will start with everybody's favourite tank, the Brewmaster. So, Brewmasters only have one major change, which is the Brewmaster's Balance, which is an ability that you pick up pretty much as soon as you choose to be a Brewmaster. It's a passive, it used to give you 25% additional armor, and now it gives you 25% additional armor, plus a flat 10% damage reduction, which presumably is going to be physical and magical. So, it's a buff, we'll take it, absolutely. It's still a lovely tank to play, nothing else has changed at all. It won't materially affect your standing, if you are regularly doing Mythic Plus and Raids, you will still be doing regular Mythic Plus and Raids, you'll just be slightly tankier than you were before, and that's fine. The things that weren't addressed in any way, shape or form are, perhaps the 6 or 7 talents that nobody ever uses, the way that stagger scales off our eye level, basically the agility that we get off our gear, who knew that was going to be difficult to balance. Zen Meditation is still a super niche ability that's rather difficult to use in most circumstances, and Spinning Crane Kick is still part of this rotation, even though we didn't really need an additional AoE ability as it was. So yes, basically, damage reduction by 10%, booyah. Windwalkers. Now, Windwalkers have, generally in Shadowlands, their general story is, wonderful AoE capability, always very, very popular in Mythic Plus, but because of that, it's one of the higher performance, and it's one that's generally more brought along. But single target, not so much, a little bit less. Now there was a mention of a buff to Tiger Palm and Rising Sun Kick and Blackout Kick by 10% flat across the board for all specs, but that seems to have been changed now to Mistweavers only. So unfortunately the potential additional 10% damage that we could have gotten there for single target, in particular for Windwalkers, isn't there anymore. So that is a shame because single target is still weakness. We're still pretty much middle of the pack when it comes to raids, but you're probably still the most valued out of the 3 specs in the monk class, and you'll still be bringing Mystic Touch, and if there are any ad pulls, you're the man. Now the new Covenant legendaries, which will be covered in another video, might mix things up a little bit. I still think you're going to be wanting to keep a copy of Invoker's Delight around, but you'll probably have to craft it onto a different armor piece now because of this new domination socket nonsense. But like I say, that is a video for another time. Basically, there have been no actual physical, mental or psychological changes to Windwalkers. You're pretty much going to be doing the same thing you've been doing since launch. And then last but not least, in my opinion anyway, we go on to Mistweavers. Now, Mistweavers are... they've undergone quite a few changes. In 9.0.5 they had a slight mana cost reduction to Renewing Mist and to Vivify. But now they've had an additional reduction of mana cost to Enveloping Mist, 7%. Personally, I didn't use Enveloping Mist all that much anyway. I was mostly raiding, so I was only using it during, Yulon or Crane windows. But, I suppose that's fine. It's mana conservation is still one of the major issues if you are not fist weaving. But anyway, yeah, I'll take it. There have been some PvP buffs as well. There have been a number of changes. I've just sort of picked out the top 3 that caught my attention. The dematerializing into Mist while stunned, reducing damage taken by 40%. This is a callback to the original version of Mistweaver in Mist of Pandaria, and it used to drive people bonkers, and it'll probably drive people bonkers again, but one of the problems Mistweavers were having in PvP was getting stun-locked and then destroyed without having any real ability to do anything. It was standing and get squished. And then there's the new Eminence, so I wish they would come up with new names for these abilities instead of taking old ones and just putting a completely different function onto them, but whatever. Transcendence Transfer can now be cast if you're stunned. Excellent. Because, once again, if you are stunned, then you usually just die. You couldn't really do anything. At least now you'll be able to port away around the corner or something. So, thank you very much. And then Thunderous Focus T, which is basically you can use Crackling Jade Lightning to get the knockback straight away, as opposed to the final part of the cast. So, you know, got kiting possibilities for keeping pesky melee away, or using Essence Font to increase your movement speed. Essence Font, is it really used all that much in PvP? I don't think I've ever used it. But, you know, I'm not much of a PvPer, so I'm happy to be corrected on that point. One significant thing that they seem to have at least acknowledged is the aforementioned 10% damage increase. Now, this is towards the three major abilities you use to damage if you are fist weaving in particular. One of the main problems with fist weaving has been that the damage has been actually quite low. I mean, it's great in terms of mana conservation, fist weaving is lovely, but in terms of actual damage output, it's a bit naff. I mean, of the three that are, you know, designed to, you know, damage to heal, we're quite some distance at the bottom. So, you know, this is absolutely welcome. The 10% damage increase is welcome in terms of, you know, actually putting out a little more damage. But we're doing slightly under 1,000 DPS on average. You'll be lucky to get above that in a standard pass, and, you know, this will get us up to 1,100, or to get us closer to the Discipline Priests. I don't know what the Paladin DPS output is going to be in 9.1, but it certainly was a little out of hand in 9.0 and 9.0.5. So, you know, if they're being brought down as well, then yes, okay, fine, we're close enough. Yeah, it's a buff, I'll take it. Will this increase Mistweaver representation in Mythic Plus? Nope. You know, if you look at the representation numbers, I think we're about 3% above a Mythic 20. Which is below the Holy Priests. And, you know, that's because, you know, they have certain cooldowns that we just do not have, and so we are just not taken. And then you get the feedback loop where people say, hey, how are Mistweavers? And they go and have a look at these, and they'll always go to the top ones, and they'll go, oh look, 3% representation, I ain't playing that. And so the sideboard goes on. So yeah, you know, these changes aren't going to really help you in Mythic Plus at all. Raiding is a little bit more promising because of the throughput, and as long as we can manage the mana properly, it's, you know, we're still going to be very much in demand. People who've been testing the new raid, Sanctum of Domination, are actually quite positive. They're quite looking forward to the raid because they think Mistweaver is going to have a pretty strong position there. So, you know, if you're raiding, great. If you're Mythic Plus, not so much, because, you know, we still suffer from, you know, the main disadvantages, which is, you know, a lack of damage reduction cooldowns outside of Life Cocoon. And we're still not really doing enough damage to garner any attention. So, you know, there are still some issues there, and I guess that is just the major theme of the 9.1 changes. For monks, it's, yes, there have been a few tweaks here and there. There's practically been no nerfs at all. I think there's one PvP ability that got slightly nerfed, but, you know, it's all buffs. But at the same time, they haven't addressed the basic mechanical issues with each of the specs. You know, they've just tweaked a few numbers and gone, is that okay? And to be honest, well, no. I mean, it's going to be much more of the same. You're not going to be doing anything drastically different to 9.1 that you weren't doing in 9.0 and 9.0.5. So, you know, if you're still enjoying a monk, and you still enjoy playing it, I love Please, my favourite class in World of Warcraft. But, you know, these changes by themselves wouldn't induce me to come back to 9.1 in any way, shape or form. But there are plenty of other reasons why I wouldn't come back to 9.1, and that is a video that is coming next. And I'll leave that alone for now. So, yes, there you go. So, monks getting better, but it's still the same. Anyway, I will be back relatively soon. But until then, I am the Conspicuous Moo, and to the Peak of Serenity with you.